was younger, I used to imagine my hands playing all over the piano in my home. I imagined this grand music coming out of me, and I think at that time I needed it. I needed some form of expression. I turned to my piano, but I also turned to orchestration. And since you're here, I'm sure you have beautiful emotions and stories stored inside of you too, and music is a way for you to express that and to have fun with the ideas and stories that are you. But maybe when you sit down to compose, you feel stuck. And maybe it feels like you have to sit and really write every single note in there, and it's just a lot of work. And maybe you see other YouTubers who, whether they're doing a library review or just showing how they compose, they're just writing it.
As always, I've got no idea what I'm gonna do.
And it might be a little discouraging because for you, you have to think about everything that you're putting into your song. But don't worry, I've got your back. I am one of those people who can just kind of write a song. I can write things really, really quickly. And a big part of that is because I've developed the special skill and intuition to write easily. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. But it all starts with our keyboard. So let's go ahead and jump on over there. And on your keyboard, it starts with chords. But don't leave yet. Just trust me on this, okay? If you already are somewhat familiar with chords, let's go over them again just to be really sure that you're confident in it, because this is going to be the foundation of this whole skill that I'm teaching you. And if you're already super duper confident in chords, you can go ahead and skip to this timestamp and we can pick up from there. The skill that I'm talking about is improvisation, and not just jazz improvisation. This is where we take any chord in any genre and we're able to just make up whatever we want because we have a really good understanding of how the piano works and how music theory works. So to start, let's pick a scale to start in. We're going to keep it real simple with C major. And we're going to pick the first note of the scale, C, and we're going to build a chord off of C using thirds. So to C, C, D, E, that's our third. And then from E, we're going to go to, give me a guess, we're going to go to G because it's a third up, E, F, G. So now we have a triad, and this is the C major chord because it starts with C and it sounds somewhat happy, right? So now that we have this first chord down, C major, we can play up the C major scale with our triads, and this is going to give us all the chords that are in our scale. Now there's lots of chords outside of just the scale that we would be composing in, but to keep it simple today, we're just going to use the chords that are inside of the C major scale. So let's try and find all the chords that we're going to be using. So first up, C major. Now the next note in the C major scale is D, right? So we're just going to go up like that, but with chords. So we have C major, now we're going up to D minor because it sounds a little more sad or angsty, right? A little more minor. Next up, we have E minor right here. Then F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and C major. Awesome, you learned the chords within our C major scale. So now we can start using those as building blocks for this next part, which is chord progressions. And that's going to make this whole thing start to come together. So a lot of improvisation is built off of a chord progression so that you know where you're at in your piece. And a chord progression is just when you take, like, for example, C major, E minor, and G minor, and then you're going to loop those over and over again. All you're doing is just looping those to keep it really simple. And obviously, once we're actually composing, you can change those up a little bit more so that there's actually more movement and dynamic to the song. But when you're improvising, you can just stick with the same 3 chords and just play it over and over again to make it easy. So now let's go ahead and find our chord progression. I'm going to go with a really common, really popular one. We're going to go with C major, then A minor, then F major, and then finally G major. Now I'm going to switch to my left hand here because my right hand is going to start taking over the melody. So to build a melody, we can use notes within a chord. So for example, we have C major. I can play, and then, because G and E are in C major, right? Then I can move to A minor, the next chord in my chord progression, and I can go A, E, A, E, A, and that's going to all be within the A minor chord. Then next I can go to F major, same note, or notes that are all within the F major chord, then G major, all notes within the G major chord. But you can probably notice it sounds really flat. There's nothing exciting about that, right? And we want to be able to write dynamically, expressively. That's why we got into composing in the first place, right? So let's figure out how we can make this more exciting. So what we're going to do is we're going to take notes that are purposefully outside of a chord, notes that sound bad, and then we're going to make them sound good. So what this is tension and resolve. So when we have C major, for example, an F, that doesn't sound very great, right? But when we resolve it to E, all of a sudden that sounds great, right? So G and E are in it, right? And I'm just starting on F, doesn't sound great, and then I'm going to play a few more notes to make it sound good. And all of a sudden, that sounds like a melody, something I can hum. So when you play that all across the chord progression, it might sound something like this. And notice I use that E at the end, E over the G major, which is dissonant, and then resolve to D. And then I can end on C, right? So that's working with tension and resolve. One of my favorite things to do now is to add arpeggios in my left hand. That way I can get more emotion across. Arpeggios can have a really big, grand, and romantic feel to them. So that can get that emotion across that I'm trying to do when I'm writing a sketch. So a lot of times when I'm improvising, I am just doing a sketch for my orchestra. So that way I can have something to build off of and I'm not lost for the whole 4 minutes of my cue. And they're super simple too. They might take a little practice to get some muscle memory in, but once you have it, it's gonna be so fun. It's my favorite thing to do. So here's how we do it. We have a C major chord, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna split these up. So we're gonna put C on the bottom, we're gonna skip E, so we're gonna go from C to G, then to C, and then finally E, G, C. And then you can go back down and do that as many times as you want, depending on the time signature you're in and how long your chord is lasting, whether it's 1 measure or 2 measures or less than that. And then we can do that for each of the chords. So A minor, A, E, A. And the reason I'm skipping C is because the lower you get, the harder it is for your ears to differentiate the notes. So we want to skip thirds. So we're going to go up a fifth, then a fourth, and then we're going to go normally with our chord progression again. So here's what it sounds like when we add the melody in the right hand, and it's going to use that tension and resolve we talk about with the arpeggios of the left hand. You see how that tells a story all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden I'm able to express what I'm feeling. So that way when I'm sitting down and I'm about to write something, I can do a sketch like this first. I can improvise into it, and then I'm able to build my whole orchestra off of it. And what's awesome is that once you get this skill down really well, then you'll be able to do it with the metronome too. And you can do just a piano sketch, you can do, or just the strings. So you can improvise the string melody, like a violin melody in your right hand, and then like the bass in your left hand, and you can just write the song, and you don't have to think about it because you know the direction that you're going in, and you know how to work with melody so that you're not forcing the melody, but you're experiencing it. So here's what I like to do. I like to have the idea of an introduction in my head. So I might play something up high, and then I'll transition lower into something more wistful or grand, depending on the mood that I'm going for. And then I can build from there, and I can either end big or end kind of soft and almost wistfully again. So you see how I was just able to play, right? So that does come with years of practice. It does take a while to master the skill, and you don't need to be that advanced to be able to play confidently and smoothly and easily in your sketches for your compositions. It would take a much longer video to cover all the techniques that I use in an improvisation like this. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, don't worry, that's okay. I am offering mentorships right now, so if you feel like you want a little more help and guidance on this subject, or even if you just want to learn how to compose better, you can go to the link in the description or in the comment, book a one-on-one virtual mentorship session with me. If you started out with your awesome improvisation, the next step then would be to simplify it. So you would figure out what time signature you're in, if you change time signatures, which I do a lot when I'm improvising. And I think it actually gives a more natural and fun, dynamic feel to it. It makes it feel like the music is moving more. So if you're doing that, don't feel like you're doing it wrong, you're doing it awesome. Then just put in your chords and simplify your melody. Make sure everything is on beat with the time signature and the tempo that you've chosen. And then you've got your sketch. And you can work wonders from that. And then all you have to do is write your string melody or write your bass line. And you don't have to think about it so much because you've already improvised it. And even while you're playing, you can improvise too. What I do a lot of the times is just put some chords in the basses, and then I'm just making up a melody line on my strings. So you don't have to start with a piano sketch. You can just write stuff in. As long as you know the general direction you're going in and you've practiced improvising, it's going to be a piece of cake. So you have your sketch, you've done it. Whether it's a simple string sketch or a simple piano sketch or an improvisation, you're ready to turn it into a full orchestra. And if you want to know how to build your orchestral cue from a sketch like a pro, go ahead and watch this video over here to learn how to do exactly that.